Hi, my name is Brian Benson with James Bean Estate Sales, and today I'm here to talk to you about renting a storage unit, or basically why you should never rent a storage unit. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because this is something that we get lots of calls about where people, they're selling a house, they get in a hurry, and instead of having an estate sale, they move everything they own into a storage unit because they think that's the smartest thing to do. And then they find out they get trapped. And when I say they get trapped, once it's in a storage unit, they find out there's no way of getting rid of any of this merchandise, and they're sitting there paying $1,000 a month with no way of getting out of it. So I'm going to talk to you about, really the reasons why you need to make sure you never do this. All right, so the first thing you need to think about is storing stuff in a storage unit is actually very expensive. In fact, it's probably the most expensive way you can rent anything. When you rent any type of storage unit in Oklahoma City, basically you're going to be paying about $1 per square foot per month. So if you have a 10 by 10 storage unit, which is 100 square foot, it's going to cost you about $100 a month. Compare that to an apartment, which has heat and air. 700 square foot apartment is going to rent for about $700 a month. 2,000 square foot house is going to rent for about $2,000 a month. So you are literally paying the exact same to rent a storage unit that has no plumbing, no heating and air, as you would for a nice house. If you look into the commercial side, like a commercial storefront is actually going to rent for a little bit less than $1 per square foot. A commercial office space will sometimes rent for only 50 to 75 cents per square foot. And those all have heating and air. Those are actually cheaper than renting a storage unit. And if you look at the fact of renting an actual air-conditioned, climate-controlled storage unit, you're going to pay an additional 50%. So you're paying $1.50 per square foot. It is literally the most expensive way you can store anything. I always say if you wouldn't rent a house to store your furniture in it, why would you rent a storage unit? It's going to cost you more per square foot to do it that way. It's just really a bad idea. Second thing, the reason why I tell people don't store anything is your stuff is going to get absolutely destroyed in storage. And the reason for this is because they're paying $1 per square foot, they try to shove everything into the smallest storage unit they can. They stack everything really badly. They don't pay for climate controlled storage. And what happens is in our Oklahoma weather, it sits in a storage unit for about 2 years. They pull it all out and everything they own is just ruined. And what do I mean by ruined? What happens is our humidity in Oklahoma will make the doors and all their dressers and stuff swell where they won't open or close. And a lot of times that swelling doesn't go back away once it's back in an air-conditioned environment. They'll stack stuff on leather furniture, and that leather, when you put boxes on leather furniture or something sharp, you're going to stretch out that leather, and that leather is never going to come back. And you're going to have all these permanent dimples and indentions on all your leather furniture. All your cardboard boxes, a lot of times, they'll draw on a lot of moisture, and what happens is they lose structural integrity, and boxes will fall over in storage, and the contents will break. A lot of times, if you set like fabric directly on top of any type of concrete surface, because these storage units aren't like built with vapor barriers, the same standards in construction of a house. A lot of times they'll draw moisture up through the concrete, and you'll have like horrible water stains all over all your fabric. Like if you have like Parsons chairs or any type of upholstery that touches the concrete directly, you'll see a lot of this happen. And then just our general heat, a lot of times you're going to see furniture dry out, crack. A lot of times the finishes will alligator and crack off. It's really devastating to see people spend lots and lots of money on furniture, put it in storage, and when they pull it out, it's just ruined. It's just almost totally unsellable. The other thing that happens if you put it into a storage unit and then 2 years later pull it out of the storage unit and we try to sell it is there's going to be lots of missing things. And people never know they're missing until it's too late because it went missing during the first mover, and now that we've noticed when we're starting to put stuff together, we find out, well, all your hardware for your bed's gone. We don't have any of the screws to put any of your furniture together. The TV remotes are gone. The power cables for your recliners and everything are gone because they went missing because they got stuck in the cab of the moving truck. They got forgot. They didn't contact you later. It's been 2 years, you're never going to get that stuff back. I've had sofas come in without feet because they had to take the feet off when they moved them out of the house. Someone stuck it in the cab of the truck, they got forgot. Movers drove off with it. Now there's no way to get those feet back. And that sofa is now just going to have to be thrown away because you're not going to want to spend $300 or $400 replacing the feet on it. It happens every single time people do this. We always find all these missing things which are just gone. I've seen beds that have been horribly, they'll stand them up on end and store them, and what happens is the filling inside gets hot, it pills, and then wads up in the bottom, and you go to lay the mattress out, and the mattress will never lay flat again. They've seen paintings that have been stored like this, and all the paint flakes off the paintings, and there's just cost more to have them restored than they're ever going to be worth. These storage units often are not sealed for weather, so you can have like dust storms come through, and it can cost you more to have your upholstery steam cleaned than the sofas are worth. The average cost of steam cleaning a sectional nowadays is about $750. A lot of times that's more than your sectional is going to be worth. It just literally is just a horrible idea to do this. Now, the other thing is about storing all your furniture in these storage units is it's just a dead end, because once it's in there, you have no way of getting rid of it. You can't do an estate sale out of a storage unit. No storage company in Oklahoma City will let you do an estate sale because, one, they're usually gated. Also, there's just no parking. There's just no way you can park 100 cars at a storage unit. And if you've got multiple storage units, they're not all going to be next to each other. They're going to be all over the complex, because when you rent them, they're just going to rent you what they have available then. You're not going to be able to do an estate sale with one storage unit here, another one two sections away down at the other end. It just won't work. And if you rented a storage unit and shoved it totally full, there's nowhere for you can't get into it even to let people shop it. The other thing is what happens, people will call us and say, okay, well, what can you do? Can you help me? Can you consign all this stuff? And I said, well, yeah, do you have any pictures? And they always say, well, no, I didn't think about taking pictures, but you can come by and take a look. And I said, okay, well, if you open up the door, what am I going to see? Is it just going to be a wall of boxes? They said, well, yeah. I said, well, I can't see anything. I won't be able to tell anything if you just roll up the door. And usually they say, well, just bring some guys over and dig through it. I'm just like, yeah, but that's expensive. If I bring 3 or 4 guys over, we spend 3 or 4 hours, digging through stuff, pulling it out to look at it. That's going to be $300 to $400. And then if we don't use it, it's going to have to get loaded back in that storage unit, which is another $300 to $400. It's very expensive when you start compounding all this stuff together. And so we're going to have to be able to see it. I've never been to a storage unit yet that was situated in a way that I could get into a storage unit, actually look at all the property, and actually see what any of it is, because it's always just jumbled in there and stacked all kind of crazy ways. So it's just a really bad idea. Now, I'm going to give you an example of the last estate that we dealt with that was in a storage unit. The guy about 2 years ago contacted me wanting to do an estate sale in the home, and I warned him, don't put the house on the market, it's a bad idea. Let me do the estate sale. As soon as the estate sale's over, put the house on the market. It's going to sell the day it goes on the market, and everything's going to be great. His realtor convinced him that, oh my gosh, don't wait. And this is in the middle of the pandemic when every house was selling the day it went on the market. The house could have been on fire and it would have sold. But she made him really panicked and said that you've got to get this house on the market to get it sold. He put it on the market. Of course, it sold the first day, and of course, like always, they had a 21-day close. The 21-day close is now the most common time frame for closing in real estate anymore. It's 3 weeks. You cannot hire a company in that short of time to get in to do an estate sale. And what happens was he called me back. I said, I can't help you. I can't do an estate sale. We're already booked up 2 months out. I don't know what you're gonna do. I said, you can consign it, move it to us. And he got all irritated and everything and just said, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to move it to storage, which is what he did. He moved it to storage. 2 years later, calls me back because, well, those storage fees are eating him alive. And what happened was, yeah, he sold the house. He sold it the day it went on the market, and he got that money from the house. But this estate sale was a really nice estate sale. When I looked at it, I told him, this is a $30,000 to $40,000 estate sale. You're going to get a check back for $20,000 to $30,000. And instead of doing that and netting $20,000 to $30,000, he moved it all to storage. That cost him about $3,000 to have it packed up and have it moved to storage. And now it's been in storage for 2 years. And he had to get 4 storage units for it to all fit. Because the thing is, if you have a 2,500 square foot house, you need about 1,200 square foot of storage. because if you don't have that much storage, it's just not going to fit. Yes, if you go to a storage unit, they're going to tell you a 3-bedroom apartment will fit in 300 square foot. But the problem is a 3-bedroom apartment is only 700 square foot. 2,500 square foot house with a 2-car garage, with all the stuff in the garage and all the storage, it's going to take up a lot of square footage to store all this stuff. He had to have 1,200 square foot to fit all the stuff from this 2,500 square foot house. It was $1,200 a month for 2 years. That was $28,000 he spent in storage. Then when he finally decided to move it to us, which he could have just done on the offset, spent that $3,000 to move it directly to us, not paid any storage fees, it cost him another $2,000. So he had to spend that $2,000 to get it to us. It came to me, and we're unpacking everything, and everything is ruined. Absolutely everything he has got severe damage. We're going to have to sell it for pennies on the dollar to get rid of it. A lot of it just had to be thrown away. We found out that a lot of stuff, because he didn't want to pay to pack everything in the house, he donated a lot of stuff that was worth a lot of money, but he had him pack up stuff that wasn't worth anything. So he wasted money packing stuff that shouldn't have been packed, and then threw away stuff that was really good. And, now the estimate, and I told him from looking at all the stuff, is, I think that if you're lucky, you might get a check for $4,000 or $5,000. You could have had a check for $30,000 2 years ago, but now you're going to get 4, maybe 5. And he spent $28,000 to store all this stuff, and he spent another $5,000 in moving. Instead of coming out ahead $20,000 to $30,000, this guy is going to, by the time it's all said and done, will have lost $30,000 because he shoved everything into storage, let it all get ruined, and then paid all these moving fees and all these storage fees he should have never done in the first place. And all of that was because he got in a hurry, because he wanted to get that house sold 1 month earlier than what he could have done if he just waited. That 1 month of hurry cost this guy $50,000. And I tell everybody, don't do it, and they always ignore me. And what happens is 2 years later, they're going to be calling me in this panic because they don't know what they're going to do. So I was only able to help this guy because I saw the sale in person 2 years ago. Had he called me out of the blue, the way the storage unit was packed, I couldn't have helped him. I couldn't have seen anything because it was all packed in there. Sofas were stuck up on end. I mean, everything was just boxed up and trashed. And this is why I say, don't do it. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to take you out there and show you the furniture and show you the problems with all this furniture so you can actually see for yourself. This is why I tell people, do not do this. Alright, so now I'm going to show you what I mean by this. And we're going to start over here. We're doing off-site estate sale. And we had the first of probably about 6 TVs. Not a single TV came in with the remote or the power cord. So whoever buys this TV, we can't tell if it works. We also, with no remote, they're going to have to buy a remote. They're going to have to buy a power cord, even to try to buy this TV, which most likely this TV is going to sell for less than it's going to cost to replace the power cord and the remote. Next thing, show you as we kind of look around, we can look at like this coffee table. When it came in, it got damaged on the thing. This coffee table was probably, $500-600 coffee table. We're going to be lucky to get $100 for it because they damaged the leg over here. When you look at the leather furniture, these right here, you can tell where stuff was stacked on the chair because they stacked it carelessly trying to save space. They now have permanent dents in here where this stuff will never, ever, ever come out and stretch. The next piece of leather furniture here, you can tell there was a big round thing that was sat here and sat for a long period of time, and it's also now permanently stretched. That will never, ever come out of this furniture. Next piece of leather, all these creases, these dimples. You can tell that there was a box that was set here. There's dimples here, dimples here. All this stuff is permanently in there. It's never going to come out. This Ralph Lauren chest, this chest was great. This chest was probably about $2,500 due. The entire top looks like somebody has taken sandpaper to it because when they stacked it in the moving truck, at some point, stuff got sat on it. It got moved around really bad. And it just wore the finish off and is totally scratched. It's probably going to be really hard to tell in the pictures, but in real life, whoever comes and looks at this and going to say, I don't want that in my house. I mean, it's just a fact of how it is. We come over here. This is Henry-Don. This table was $3,700 new. And they stored it in an unair conditioned climate control place. You cannot even open the drawers. The humidity swelled the drawers up, and they are unopenable past this point. No one's going to buy this. If they buy this, they're going to give you $100 for something that was $3,700 2 years ago. All of this stuff was in mint condition when it was in the house. When I looked at it, everything was pristine. And all of this stuff happened in the 2 moves and the bad storage. We come over here. These, same thing. We've got dimples that are permanently dented. You've got, right here, you've got lines where stuff was set across it. One thing I didn't point out on that first table, and it's hard to see unless you actually look across the light, somebody actually laid a piece of fabric on top of it. It melted into the finish. So now when you look at the finish in the light, it has the grain of this fabric is permanently impressed into the finish of it. That will never come out unless you refinish the furniture. This piece, like I said, not only does it have the indentions, because it wasn't air conditioned, this thing was so dry and dehydrated, we emptied an entire bottle of leather conditioner on this to let it soak in, because as it had faded out, it had dried up, and actually started like turning a light shade of brown. It was in that bad a shape. This piece is another piece that was badly stored. It actually got so humid that the bolts ripped out of the bottom, so now this piece of furniture doesn't even attach to the bottom anymore because all of that ripped out. The trim swelled and fell off of it. This drawer we actually miraculously can open, but it's all banged up and all screwed up. Like I said, instead of being able to get significant money for this furniture, now we're going to be throwing it away at just fire sale cost. When we look at like this desk that came in, because of whoever moved it, the entire top's gouged and scratched. And that's something that, you know, unless you want to refinish a piece of furniture, is just not going to, I mean, you're not going to get any of that back. This bed over here is a victim of, they didn't send us any hardware. The hardware never showed up on it, and without the hardware, we now have to go out and find the hardware, and it's expensive to do that. It's not so much as that's expensive for the hardware. The hardware might only cost $20, but by the time we start putting labor and going to the hardware store, buying hardware, coming back, trying it out, it doesn't work, going back to a hardware store, buying the hardware again, coming back, trying it out. By the time you invest all that time trying to get all those components, you're going to have $100 in labor on top of the hardware cost just so we can get this bed put back together. When you get to these two pieces are the biggest, you know, little disappointing things. Because of the way that they moved it, these things are built to come apart. They didn't know that when they moved it, so they permanently jacked up the top. The top absolutely is now permanently warped and distorted. When they moved it in, it's missing a leg. The legs, someone took the leg off. There is no leg for this thing. This was an $8,000 brand new piece. It is missing a front leg, and there's no way to get in that leg again. If you look at the bottom, you can tell the high humidity it was stored in. It actually, the heat baked the finish off of this. This entire drawer front would have to be totally restored. And the problem is, you can't just do that drawer and get it to match. You're going to have to do the entire front of this cabinet. You're talking about thousands of dollars to repair this thing because of bad storage. The piece directly next to it, exact same thing again. Down here, finish started baking off. It was probably a combination of the finish and the humidity. With it sitting directly on a moist floor, it just started like peeling all that finish off. Then you also got just bad moving where there's like scratches and stuff into it. I mean, at this point, you're just like, why did you do all this? You could have just thrown the furniture into the dumpster, because that's what you did. You just took you 2 years to do it. Get to this piece. This piece has horrible gouges. This entire side looks like they just threw it up on a dolly with no protection, and they gouged out this whole side. There's scuffs that go all the way across the top. When you get to this piece, this is a Maitland Smith table. It was $4,500 new. And it's hard to tell, but when you look at it in the light and get the glare on it, it is totally scuffed like sandpaper all the way across the whole finish. I mean, it's just devastating, because, you know, this is what they would call in the automotive world is a good 10-foot car. You know, this is a good 10-foot table. 10 foot away, it looks fine. You put it in your house where you're going to be sitting at it, you don't want it. We come over here. And these were another example. These two sofas came in, they were so dirty because there was so much dust on them that luckily one of my guys vacuumed off and kind of got them steamed. This one had candle wax from a box. It had gotten hot, the candle wax in it had melted out and poured candle wax all over it. He was able to get it scraped off. Spent 3 hours scraping candle wax off a sofa we're trying to get $150 for. I mean, it's just, if we'd called out a professional cleaner to have this cleaned, it'd be $300. And we still didn't get it all totally clean. There's still stains. But that was just cleaned up enough just to sell it. Then over here, we look at these headboards. These are upholstered headboards that were set directly onto the concrete. And you can tell that it wicked the moisture up off of the floor. And when it did that, it just drew the moisture off the floor like a sponge, and then it permanently stained it all the way across the bottom of this headboard and the next headboard. These were beautiful headboards, and they were really sellable. But now they're ruined because nobody wants that in their home. The mattresses that came with them all had to be thrown away because all of them had soaked up moisture. I mean, it really was the amount of stuff we had to throw away from the cell because it was just ruined in storage, or it was ruined because of the movers. You know, it's just pointless. All of this could have been avoided had the guy not gotten in a hurry, let us do a sale at the house. He would have made a lot of money. Instead, he chose not to do that because he had to get that house sold that day. And then all the rest of the stuff he basically just threw away. So this is really kind of, I hope you can understand, you know, this is kind of an example of what we see on an everyday basis. I mean, I've seen much worse situations where it's come in much worse shape. You know, this is a situation where I had seen this stuff before, so I know how nice this stuff was. But the thing is, you know, when stuff is moved twice, you literally move it on, well, or 4 times, you move it onto a truck, then that truck shakes it around and, you know, drops stuff on top of it. Then you unload it and move it again into a storage unit, and then it sits in the hot sun for, you know, 2 years. And then after that, you know, you load it back on a truck, you shake it up again, drop stuff on it, and stuff's rubbing against it, and then you unload it here. The stuff's going to get a lot of wear, and it's really not a good thing if you're trying to actually make some money on it. You know, all this stuff was really nice, high-end stuff. It was worth a lot of money. It would sell for a lot of money, but now it's in such a shape that, you know, we're going to be selling it for pennies on the dollar because of this guy. And like I said, it's very sad to see when I give someone advice and look, you know, you're going to make significantly more money if you do this, and they ignore that and they just squander the ability, and they're going to put themselves $50,000 in the red over all this stuff. And it's really, like I said, it's just really sad to see. Unfortunately, this is a call that we get almost daily. People always have stuff in storage. It's always ruined. I know it's going to be ruined anymore. We pretty much don't even let stuff come in from storage anymore because we know it's going to be thrown away when it gets to the door just because of this. Anyway, you know, like I said, do yourself a favor. Don't put your stuff in storage. It's just a really bad idea. You know, have the estate sell, then sell the house. Don't mess with storage at all. It's just a dead end. You will never recoup from this.